get into that area, I kind of want to start it off by just providing you a little bit quick overview of the BlackBerry development landscape. From that, talk a little bit about native application development for BlackBerry 10 devices, web development, and then we'll dive into Android porting and spend a good chunk of our time there, provide you some resources, and then I'm off, right? So, if you happen to have questions during my presentation, hold them until after I leave the room, and then you may ask some questions. I'm only saying that to just check who's awake, and people are nice and woke. I love it. So, let's start off by talking about the BlackBerry 10 development landscape. As I mentioned, I have about 13 years of software development, so when I first started writing applications for the mobile platform, I started off with Windows Mobile, not Windows Phone, Windows Mobile, using the .NET Compact framework. From that, and I did that for a customer. I was actually hired by someone to do that. And from that, the next application that I built was for the BlackBerry platform. 4.6, I think it was the BlackBerry 8900 was the very first thing that I wrote for. At the time, there was only 2 ways to write apps for the BlackBerry platform, and that was J2ME, right, Java 2 Micro Edition, and essentially a web app, which really wasn't best for a fully immersive user experience. Since then, for the BlackBerry 10 ecosystem, that's all changed. So now we have a few different approaches. FYI, my laser is broken. I was partying so hard in the last presentation, my little pointer doesn't work anymore. So you guys are missing a key component of my show today. So, all right, we're going to start by talking about HTML5 BlackBerry WebWorks. That's essentially a path or an option that allows you to build apps for the BlackBerry platform using web technologies. And the great thing about going down that path is that these are not web apps that you'd be building. These are literally native BlackBerry applications. The difference is you're using web assets that you have already built. So for instance, HTML5, CSS, and JavaScript. If you already spent some effort and some time building out a web presence, you would be able to use a lot of what you have going down the HTML5 BlackBerry WebWorks path. I'm going to talk a bit more about that in detail a little bit later. Just a quick overview. Next approach, native SDK, C and C++. I heard you mention C a little bit earlier. I used to do C++ development, and I almost knocked chicken fingers out of her hand coming through my last swing there. But I used to do C and C++ development. I used to work for a trading firm in downtown Chicago. This is how we wrote our high applications. This is definitely a approach that if you'd like to build high performance BlackBerry applications for the BlackBerry 10 platform, games like for instance EA Sports, they go down this path when they're building apps for the BlackBerry 10 platform. However, for those of us who've done C and C++ development, when it comes to building and designing user interfaces, that's not an easy task, it's very daunting. With that in mind, C++, Qt, and Cascades, that's an approach that allows you to build applications for BlackBerry 10, still using C++ for, say, the business logic and the things that does all the things that you don't see. But the Qt or QML, which stands for Qt modeling language, is essentially gives you tools and other components of building that allows you to rapidly build a compelling user interface, in addition to being powered with a C++ set of business logic. So that's my favorite approach now. In fact, many of the applications that I've been building or helping customers build, we've been doing with Cascades. A lot still go down the path of WebWorks because of the benefits of obviously web technologies kind of driving that. If you are, we're in Chicago, if you are Air Jordan, Adobe Air, right? That was a bad joke. I mean, but hey, I have to try. I get points for effort. If you happen to be someone who is an Adobe developer or have already built applications using it, you can definitely build applications for BlackBerry 10 using ActionScript, among other things, as far as the Adobe toolset is concerned. And then what would be of interest to all of us, I did say us, Android developers, the Java Android runtime. I told you I'm a developer, period. Right? So that's just to make sure that's painfully obvious. But the Java Android runtime is exactly what it sounds like. It's a runtime that exists on a BlackBerry operating system for the purpose of running ported Android applications. We're going to talk a little bit more about that as I move further through this presentation. So, we're going to talk a little bit about the BlackBerry 10 browser, html5test.com. Anybody checked that out before? It's actually a great site. It essentially checks compliance with HTML5 standards, although it's kind of a moving target with HTML5 standards. But when it comes to the Blackberry 10 platform powered by a WebKit rendering engine, we scored one of the highest scores as far as HTML5test.com is concerned. What that means is, as we know, with HTML5 being as powerful as it is right now, allowing you to do way more in development than we've ever been able to do. We've been actually making sure that we strive that we can build an HTML5 compliant browser, thus giving the users of the browser the best web experience possible. But from the development perspective, that means that you can definitely leverage a lot of the HTML5 capabilities when building applications. We scored 485. I checked this again earlier today, and we're still at 485 with 11 bonus points. Not only are we outperforming other mobile browsers, we are outperforming other desktop browsers as well. So just something that we wanted to definitely mention. Ringmark, anyone heard of the Ringmark test? Oh, okay, awesome. I usually have prizes. I'm giving you one.
It's the worst thing of my life.
I'm sorry. I'm telling you, this whole little laser thing has just thrown me off. My laser being gone, I can't even think straight. The Ringmark test is built by the engineers at Facebook. It essentially is, not only does it allow you to test for the HTML5 compatibility like what we saw with HTML5 test, but this is more so based on the components that actually apply to user experience. There's all these HTML5 standards and powerful components that HTML5 provides to you, but much of it doesn't have to do with literally GUI and user experience, right? The Ringmark test actually helps to kind of test some of the most common components and how compliant your browser is in properly rendering these components. Our browser was the first vendor to pass Ringmark 1, and essentially as you go through the rings, the further into the rings, the more compliant your browser is from the perspective of user experience. So we have done well with the Ringmark test. That part's done. Now we're going to talk a little bit about native development. I mentioned we have two different options on that very first slide. This one is the Cascades option. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. Dive into web, over to Android. We're almost done. So, as I mentioned, Cascades for Blackberry 10 is an approach that allows you to build applications for our platform using C++ for things like the business logic, but you can definitely leverage Qt or QML or our Cascades software development kit to build out a compelling user interface. Now, we understand, and most of us, in fact, all of us in this room, except for the social worker, remember a time where application GUIs and user interfaces weren't as important as they are right now. They didn't care what software looked like on your desktop. You didn't care about it. Now it's very important. So when you get these assignments, when these projects are come down, from the stakeholders, people are always talking about, I want it to look like this. But wait a minute. Let's talk about what it should do. First, I need a button on the first page. It needs to have a flame when I touch it, and the flame should dance. People want great looking applications. I get it. I want a great looking application as well now, right? I've actually been suckered into this whole new mindset of application development from the user interface perspective. So Cascades allows you to do that. Allows you to build these applications that provides you a rich set of user interface components with things such as built-in effects, right? Animations. You don't have to write all the logic to actually get something to slide in or grade in a nice smooth way. Almost like PowerPoint. What if you had to write logic every time you wanted something to fade in? Prior to a lot of the software development kits that are coming out now, you had to do that, and that's understandable. But Cascades actually allows you to build applications with these rich user interfaces without having to labor over the user interface component, right? The business logic is generally the most important part. User experience obviously is definitely in there, but if it doesn't do all the things it needs to do behind the scenes, who cares what it looks like? So it's good that we're able to kind of take a little bit of that burden off of the software development and allow you to still be able to build compelling applications that are still powerful and successful. You still have access to core device level components, accelerometer, PIM, or personal information management, such as calendar and address book, etc. You still can get access to that stuff. And also there's a set of advanced development tools. QML view, similar to what you see with Android with Eclipse, you kind of have that little view as you're building out the GUI. It's the exact same thing here. Profiling, actually checking parts of your code that's the least or the most performant. And then deployment. You can actually deploy using the Cascades interface. The interface is built on Eclipse.